Beneath the weight of ancient oaks in Charleston's St. Michael's Cemetery, there are graves that the city's oldest families don't like to talk about. Not because they're forgotten. Because they were never allowed to be remembered. 9 graves. 9 gravestones, each bearing the same kind of name. Prosperous planters. Men who died in the early 1850s, during the same merciful kind of illness. Sudden paralysis. Doctors calling it a quiet ending. A natural end. But in 1923, during routine restoration work, something was uncovered that didn't match any version of natural. Workers found the coffins. And inside, on all 9, there were marks that didn't belong to decay. Fingernails scraped into the wood. Deep gouges. As if the people trapped beneath had been trying to claw their way back to air, back to life. Municipal officials locked it away. And the city turned the page before anyone could read what it truly said. But that wasn't all. Beneath the roots of the cemetery's oldest magnolia tree, workers found something else, hidden like a warning. A weathered journal made of leather. Written in careful, disciplined script. Signed by a name the records tried to erase. Solomon Fairfax. And in this journal, inside one man's steady hand, was the full blueprint of vengeance. A plan that began with a family being torn apart, and ended with 9 powerful men being buried while still aware of their own entombment. Tonight, we follow Solomon Fairfax. From healer to weapon. From trusted assistant to Charleston's most precise nightmare. Prologue/setup, 2 to 5 o'clock. You might be wondering how something like this could even be possible. In the 1850s, Charleston was not just wealthy. It was untouchable. The city glittered with power, white columns lining the streets near the Cooper River, old fortunes rising like monuments, wealth carved from cotton and rice. Their world had a medical class too, small, respected, and expensive. And just like every other powerful system, it protected itself. When mysterious illnesses struck certain households, weakness, fevers, sudden paralysis, people didn't question it too loudly. Because questioning it would mean admitting that death wasn't random. It was curated. It was convenient. And some families, some very specific families, were always the ones affected. Chapter 1, The Doctor's Assistant, 5 to 12 o'clock. In Charleston, there was a doctor named Dr. Cornelius Hathaway. He opened his practice in 1845 and quickly gained favor among the elite. His success came from something the wealthy loved more than anything: confidence. Innovative remedies. Treatments that sounded advanced. A willingness to borrow from distant traditions. But what truly made his practice dangerous wasn't only his intelligence. It was his assistant. A man enslaved by law, yet unmatched by anyone in skill. Solomon Fairfax. Solomon wasn't just help. He was the mind behind precision. He handled medicinal plants like a botanist. He worked with chemical compounds like someone trained for years. He prepared delicate mixtures with an accuracy that made even doctors pause and wonder. How does he know this? Where did he learn it? The truth was simpler, and far more terrifying. Solomon's knowledge wasn't new. It ran in his family like blood. For generations, healers passed techniques from plantation to plantation across the Carolina Low Country. Solomon could read. Solomon understood the Latin in medical texts. He could interpret remedies with discipline, not guesswork. And Dr. Hathaway, who needed results, bought him. Not for charity. For advantage. At first, patients treated Solomon as just an assistant. But after watching the improvements, after realizing who was getting better, and how quickly, many began asking for him by name. They didn't want the doctor's staff. They wanted Solomon. His calm demeanor let him move through rooms that would never have accepted him as a person. And once the elite trusted him, they spoke freely. They confessed habits. They bragged about their investments, their scheduling, their connections. Solomon listened. And while they thought they were controlling their own fate, Solomon started mapping theirs. Because Solomon's life didn't begin in Charleston. It began far from those polished rooms. On a plantation called Peton. About 15 miles outside the city. For 32 years before Hathaway purchased him, Solomon lived there, working, learning, surviving. There he married a woman named Celia, and they raised 3 children in the cramped space enslaved families were allowed. 2 boys. 1 girl. They weren't free. But they were together. And their stability existed because Solomon kept the plantation alive, treating snake bites, fevers, illnesses, childbirth complications, saving people the system depended on. So the Peton family tolerated the arrangement. Not because they respected Solomon. Because his healing made them profitable. Then the fragile stability shattered in March 1851. Chapter 2, The Auction, 12 to 2000 hours. In March of 1851, the Peton plantation faced trouble. An heir, Edmund Peton, was gambling himself deeper into debt. And debt, in those days, wasn't paid with money. It was paid with people. He decided to liquidate what creditors would accept fastest. Human beings. Separate families. Sell bodies. Turn lives into fast cash. On the surface, this was business. But in reality, it was a slow, deliberate cruelty. Solomon pleaded. He offered years of unpaid labor. He proposed working himself harder, sooner, longer, anything to keep his wife and children from being scattered. He begged for them to stay together. But appeals didn't matter. When the paperwork was ready, nothing stopped the train. The auction was set for March 14, 1851, in Charleston's slave market. That night before it happened, Solomon held his family close in their cabin, not speaking too loudly, not daring to hope too much, because even hope could bring consequences. Celia stayed steady, quiet courage, trembling grief. Their son Marcus was 8, bright, curious, already asking questions about a world outside the fields. Samuel was 6, gentle hands, a healer's touch, often lingering near Solomon while herbs were gathered. Grace was 4, small, observant, clinging like she could feel disaster coming without understanding its shape. Then traders arrived. Families were loaded into wagons like inventory. Parents spoke across wooden slats, making vows they would never be allowed to keep. We will find you. We will be a family again. Halfway to the city, the wagon hit a deep rut. The whole structure lurched sideways. Celia was thrown from the wagon. Her head struck a rock. Blood spread quickly. Solomon lunged, shouting her name. But the people in charge didn't see tragedy. They saw damaged property. They checked for breath, muttered about ruined merchandise, and ordered the wagon forward. Celia was left behind in the road. As Solomon watched his wife die, his children were taken away anyway. Marcus was purchased by a Georgetown rice planter, used children to manage the dangerous irrigation channels where alligators lurked. Samuel was sold to a fast-wearing cotton grower in the uplands, someone famed for exhausting labor until nothing remained. Grace was too small for field work, so she was sold as a house servant in Savannah, and swallowed by the web of southern cities. And through it all, Solomon stood still, face smoothed into nothing. Because in that system, visible emotion was punishment. That night, something essential broke. Not physically. Inside. Solomon understood something in his bones. If this world refused justice, then he would have to manufacture it. Chapter 3, the journal begins, 20:00, 28:00. That night, Solomon opened a hidden leather journal. He wrote in the careful hand he'd developed long before. The ink was steady. The sentence he wrote, one line that explains everything to come, was recorded as the first entry. Today I watched my wife and children burn, and I did nothing to stop it. And that wasn't metaphor. It was the only honest way a man could describe watching a family be destroyed in front of him. After that, the weeks blurred. He returned to his role. To Hathaway's practice. To calm routines. To appearing ordinary. While others saw only a patient assistant preparing tonics, Solomon was studying everything. He watched. He collected. He learned the private connections of Charleston's medical world, who visited, when they visited, what they feared, what they insisted on, and what they quietly profited from. Because Solomon wasn't only planning revenge on one person. He planned it on a system. And he knew something else too. Hathaway trusted him completely. Hathaway was a childless widower in his 50s. His arthritis stiffened his hands. Solomon's remained steady. So Solomon began doing more. He treated patients quietly. He adapted treatments without asking permission. He saw clients alone. He became the unseen foundation beneath the doctor's reputation. The wealthy started requesting him, inviting him into spaces where enslaved people were not supposed to matter. And in those rooms, Solomon listened to information flow the way other people breathed. Servants spoke in whispers. Kitchens traded secrets. House staff from grand homes along the Battery shared schedules and rumors. Who was traveling? Who was investing? Who hosted? Who chaired charities? Who financed the trade? And slowly, Solomon traced the chain back to the slave market. Back to the day his children were scattered. He counted men. 9. Prominent. Respectable. Directly or indirectly responsible. Bidders at the auction. Loaners to dealers. Men who bought people elsewhere after profiting from breaking families like glass. 9 names. 9 targets. And Solomon didn't need a random poison. He needed something precise. Something that looked like mercy. Something doctors would accept without suspicion. Chapter 4. The Toxin No One Could Name, 28:00, 36:00. Solomon found a reference in older medical writing, something about a vine whose extract, if purified properly, could cause total muscular paralysis without shutting down consciousness. The most frightening part? The victim might appear outwardly dead, while still being fully aware inside their body. Hours later, life would slip away. But by then, the victim would already be prepared, already be buried, already have been silenced by earth. Solomon located the vine through study and connections, then discovered that specimens were being tended by a Charleston botanist and professor at the College of Charleston, Professor Nathaniel Crenshaw. Solomon approached the professor, offering help with tending the plant. Crenshaw welcomed him, assuming it was curiosity, assuming there was no danger. In a shed behind the practice, Solomon refined extraction methods and tested tiny amounts on lab mice. Too little caused weakness. Too much killed quickly. But he found the amount that produced the illusion of peace while the mind remained trapped in horror. And mastering chemistry wasn't the hardest test. The hardest part was emotional control. Solomon had to train his heart not to flinch when doubt crept in. He opened the journal, wrote his children's names, remembered that men smiled during the moments his family was taken. And then he chose the first target. Chapter 5, Fitzpatrick, and the first answered debt, 36:00, 44:00. The first man was Colonel Reginald Fitzpatrick, a wealthy rice planter. Fitzpatrick attended the auction, joking loudly about potential. And Fitzpatrick suffered chronic gout. Perfect, plausible death. Perfect opportunity to avoid autopsies. If he died suddenly, doctors would accept it. No one would dig deeper. Fitzpatrick visited Hathaway monthly. So Solomon prepared. On December 15, 1852, Fitzpatrick arrived limping and irritable. He complained his pain had worsened. Hathaway was with another patient, so Solomon handled the usual treatment. He measured the dose with steady hands. Fitzpatrick swallowed the medicine. Then Solomon sat beside him and spoke in a calm voice. The colonel's eyes began to blur. Recognition arrived, then panic. He tried to call out. His throat didn't obey. Solomon didn't raise his voice. He didn't comfort him. He instructed him. In about an hour, Hathaway would pronounce death. Fitzpatrick would be prepared for burial and taken to St. Michael's. He would not truly die until hours after the coffin closed. And he would hear the shovels. And he would understand everything. Fitzpatrick's chest moved faintly, only visible to a trained observer. His pulse hid. 5 minutes later, Hathaway returned and found Solomon standing beside what looked like a corpse. Solomon told him the colonel passed. Peacefully. The doctor confirmed the obvious. The funeral followed with ceremony. And Solomon watched dirt rain onto wood, wondering if Fitzpatrick was still listening. That night, Solomon wrote, "Fitzpatrick has been answered. 8 remain." And society mourned. No one suspected. No one questioned it. Hathaway even cited it as proof that heart failure can strike without warning. The success emboldened Solomon. But it didn't calm him. Because he knew what Fitzpatrick must have experienced. And he couldn't sleep without imagining the hours inside a coffin. Chapter 6, Patterns, Acceleration, and a reporter waking up, 44 to 00, 52 to 00. Soon, Solomon moved to the next name. But he had learned something terrifying. Attention changes everything. He needed different timelines. Different causes of death. Different symptoms that could still be interpreted as natural. So he chose Judge Marcus Calverton, a man who argued from the bench that separating families was necessary for order and economic efficiency. Calverton suffered years of migraines and frequent visits. A fatal stroke could be plausible. Solomon prepared. But in April 1853, while mixing the dose, he drew it too heavy. Paralysis came faster than planned. Even Hathaway noticed something strange, more rigidity than typical strokes. But without a framework to suspect a refined toxin, the doctor still concluded it was a severe event. Calverton died. A grand funeral followed. And at that funeral, Solomon noticed something. A young man standing apart, scribbling in a notebook. Thomas Grimby, a reporter for the Charleston Mercury. He'd been tracking prominent deaths, a pattern. Deaths that sounded plausible individually. but looked wrong when connected. Solomon now realized he had less time. Fewer safe targets. He needed the work finished sooner. Because patience was no longer a luxury. It was a countdown. Chapter 7, Dandridge, the dinner that turned into evidence, 52:00, 60:00. Solomon's next target was Captain William Dandridge, a ship owner who transported enslaved people from Charleston to markets further south. Dandridge rarely needed a doctor. He was healthy, energetic. So Solomon had to create an occasion. He fed information to the kitchens, using enslaved staff as his path to the elite's private lives. A veteran kitchen supervisor named Martha mentioned a dinner Dandridge planned for May 20, 1853. A gathering for maritime power brokers. Solomon volunteered to help serve, claiming Martha was short-staffed due to fever-thinning teams. The plan worked. That evening glittered. Candlelight dancing on glass. Silver catching reflections. Conversation full of cold strategy, contracts, expansion, rebellion suppression, keeping cargo alive long enough to sell. Solomon measured the dose into Dandridge's dessert, brandy-soaked cake. Then he watched from the doorway. Soon Dandridge grew lightheaded. He stood. He stumbled. He collapsed. Guests called for a doctor. And when Dr. Samuel Pettigrew examined Dandridge, his words spread through the room like panic. The muscles were rigid. It looked like poison. Within hours, Grimby arrived and interviewed servants and guests. And for the first time, Solomon's connection to multiple, natural, deaths became obvious. He still had fewer names left. 6. And increased attention made his plan more dangerous. So he made his most reckless decision. Chapter 8, The Henderson Conference Room Massacre, 60:00, 68:00. Solomon believed he could strike several at once. End the investigation by flooding the system with events it couldn't explain fast enough. His surveillance revealed 6 traitors would meet after hours on June 15, 1853, at Henderson's Associates. A building with a centralized gas system feeding lamps in each office. Solomon worked secretly for 2 weeks. He waited in the alley until the windows glowed. Then he entered with a key. 30 minutes later, silence settled. In the conference room, 6 men sat frozen in the exact positions they'd been occupying. Only their eyes moved. As Solomon stepped forward, he spoke clinically. He told them their status. They would be declared dead. They would be mourned. They would not actually die for hours. But in those hours, they would feel everything. Then Solomon turned to leave. And footsteps sounded in the hallway. Someone arrived who didn't fit the calculation. Grimby stood there. Notebook in hand. Shock on his face. Recognition and fear. "So it's true," he whispered. Someone had been removing Charleston's pillars. And the one doing it was Solomon Fairfax. Solomon didn't deny it. Grimby's mind raced between his duty and what his southern soul understood too clearly. He couldn't ignore the institution that made a man like Solomon possible. He also couldn't pretend the evidence didn't demand exposure. He tried to reason. But Solomon's answer was calm and final. He would not run. He would let the truth be seen. Chapter 9, Confession, Trial, and the City Forced to Hear It, 68:00, 75:00. Constables burst in. And they found the tableau they couldn't explain. 6 motionless men. 1 silent creator. Solomon didn't resist. He confessed clearly, methodical, detailed, almost scientific. He explained the compounds, the doses, the timeline. His statement didn't only unravel the Henderson incident. It dragged the previous 2 years of sudden deaths into the light. A trial followed. One of the most charged legal spectacles in Charleston's antebellum era. Not because anyone doubted Solomon's actions, but because the actions dragged slavery's moral core into daylight. The prosecution, Charles Rutt led, wanted a simple story. Multiple murders. No nuance. No moral context. Order must be preserved. The defense, Benjamin Crawford, was appointed into an impossible position. Not to claim innocence, but to show the truth. To force Charleston to look at itself. Witnesses described auction blocks, separations, the calculated destruction of families. Solomon himself testified with precision. He didn't beg. He didn't soften. He explained that he watched his world end helplessly. And he expressed no remorse, only regret that 3 names remained. Grimby's reporting sparked controversy across the South. He published excerpts from the journal in plain language. And scientists took interest too. Because the idea that an enslaved man could master chemistry challenged the lie people needed to believe. That knowledge belonged only to the powerful. And the people who were paralyzed and later revived became living evidence. They described their nightmare in court. Hearing their own deaths pronounced. Feeling hands arrange them. Being inside a body that would not move. Colonel Harrison Vance spoke flatly, haunted. He could hear his wife weeping over him. He couldn't lift a finger. If Solomon intended to teach fear, he succeeded. Chapter 10, Execution and the Unmarked Grave, 75:00, 82:00. The jury deliberated less than an hour. The verdict was inevitable. Guilty. October 15, 1853. Before more than 2,000 people, Solomon Fairfax was hanged. His final words were recorded by Grimby and printed across the South. He died knowing 9 men felt the terror his children felt. That would be enough. Because this system would continue. And others would suffer. So when it happened, remember, patience has limits. Solomon was buried in an unmarked grave outside city limits. Law demanded it. The journal was seized as evidence. It never returned to official archives. But Grimby didn't stop there. Decades later, while preparing his memoirs, he returned to St. Michael's and buried the original journal beneath the oldest magnolia, near the men Solomon had claimed. In an 1889 note, Grimby wrote why he couldn't destroy the record. He couldn't risk it being used as a blueprint. But he also couldn't let the truth vanish. He believed a future generation might read it with clearer eyes. Final Revelation, 1923, 82:00, 50:00. In 1923, renovation crews returned to St. Michael's Cemetery. They found claw marks on 9 coffin lids. Once again, the past tried to speak. But this time, the city tried harder to silence it. Workers also rediscovered the journal's hiding place. And the scratches matched what Grimby had claimed. Officials sealed the files immediately, citing public safety and unrest. Some believed the real motive was reputation. Because the wealth of Charleston wasn't just built on cotton and rice. It was built on the trade Solomon punished. The fear wasn't only about Solomon's method. It was about what his method proved. That people underestimated what the oppressed were capable of. And once that myth breaks, everything else becomes vulnerable. Epilogue/moral horror hook, remaining time. So what do you think? Was Solomon Fairfax evil? Or was he justice in a form society wasn't prepared to recognize? Was vengeance the only language Charleston ever understood? Or was he simply proving something colder? That when patience runs out, the system may finally meet the truth it deserves? Because even if the journal never reappeared in the official archives, it still survived in the ground. Waiting. Quiet. Patient. And if history teaches us anything, it's that the past never stays buried forever. Call to action, end screen. If this story chilled you, comment with your state and tell me whether you think Solomon Fairfax was a monster or a mirror. Subscribe for more horror-realistic history mysteries. And turn on notifications, because the next one might be older than you think. GOODBYEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEEE